America must stay true to our values and remain consistent in our support for the people of Taiwan, who share America's people's desire to live in peace, freedom, and democracy.
With the Republican Party increasingly split over the value of fully embracing democracy as a worthy goal for other nations, it was encouraging to see conservatives come together for last week's visit to the United States by Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen. Republican support for defending Taiwan against China is described almost wholly as a commitment that is in the U.S.'s national interest. But some go further.
90% of the advanced semiconductor capabilities for the world in manufacturing exists right here in Taiwan. If that is compromised in any way, it's a strategic asset, a national security asset. If that is taken over by invasion or it's broken, it will send this globe into a world of hurt and a global depression.
Set against the backdrop of China's accelerating military exercises in Taiwan's shadow, President Tsai acknowledged what she called our shared interests. But she also suggested the relationship was about defending Taiwan's democracy, which has existed as a functioning reality only since the late 1990s.
We once again find ourselves in a world where democracy is under threat.
She then quoted Ronald Reagan, whose ideas on foreign policy and economics are also losing favor in some conservative circles.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation.
President Tsai no doubt remembers that the world adopted Hong Kong's fight for freedom in 2019 and then let it sink into China's anti-democratic embrace. She's also aware of what has happened to Ukraine, a nation steadily losing favor among some Republicans just 1 year after Russia's invasion. Whatever Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' real views on Ukraine, his comment that it's a territorial dispute sits now as one marker of conservative sentiment. It is also now the view of other Western leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, who recently spent time with President Xi in China. Indeed, one has to believe that both President Tsai and Zelensky are wondering, will the Americans and Western Europeans stick with us or sell us out?
Hoping to solve intricate problems of war and peace, President Roosevelt reaches the Yalta meeting, accompanied by his daughter, Mrs. Anna Boddicker.
It's hard not to notice that the most ardent support for Ukraine today comes from the Eastern European democracies on the country's periphery, countries that remember what happened at Yalta in 1945.
Not since the Tehran conference 14 months ago have the three top executives of Allied strategy and diplomacy met.
Meeting with Joseph Stalin, Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill consigned these nations to 40 years under communist rule. Eastern European democracies today don't want to see that happen again, but Mr. Putin does.
What he proposes to create, Putin, is a new sphere of influence, a new Yalta, in which those countries come behind his new Iron Curtain.
Those pressuring Ukraine to negotiate to get the war over need to explain why Mr. Putin won't violate any deal, just as Stalin did. 10 years ago, it was Crimea. Today, Putin aims to pocket Donetsk, and over time he'll demand or seize more territory. It's an irony that just as the Republican Party is abjuring democracy building, Putin and China's Xi Jinping are actively committed to democracy destruction.
Would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
Resolving the U.S.'s future commitment to freedom is largely an internal Republican debate. Democrats, should they retain power, will never increase national security spending sufficiently to defend Taiwan or other emerging threats. Nothing is going to stop the upward spending trajectory on entitlements and climate subsidies. With the odor of a Yalta sellout drifting through the Republican Party, the time for the leadership to start debating its position is now. not least to give both Ukraine and Taiwan time to prepare for whether the U.S. is realistically going to be there for them or not.